Just play the damn thing.
Hello everybody, one and all. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video. Today is Viewer Comments Day. This is a video series where I pick out some of your comments and I read and respond to them directly here in a video. But before we get too far along here in the process, if you would do me a huge favor and please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I'm trying really hard to grow the channel this year, and your support via subscribing to the channel, via hitting the alerts icon, via checking out a video or two here or there, or any of the support links down in the description, all go a really long way towards doing that. So, without further ado, let's get to some comments. My very little experience trying stacking pedals left me to quickly realize it wasn't for me. The sound it produces gets more dirty the more you add, although I can't recommend you get the same pedals as me, but I would suggest an overdrive with a favorite switch, so you have two drive tones on your feet. Never look back. Thanks for the content. You know, and the truth is stacking pedals isn't really my thing either. You know, I did that video, you know, at the request of, you know, it started with a request of one viewer, then a few other people piled on and said, yeah, I'd like to see that. So, you know, so that's why I did it. You know, but as far as me and my own personal, you know, my own personal use, my own personal rigs, I don't stack gain pedals either. You know, I mean, I like to use an overdrive into an overdriven amp, or a distortion into a clean amp or something like that. You know, maybe a light overdrive in front of that if that's the route that I'm going, just to tighten things up a little bit. But I don't generally stack. I'm not somebody that's going to stack two tube screamers on top of each other or something like that. Lots of people do. Not poo-pooing that method for people that like to do that at all. You know, God knows I love pedals. I'm not talking down about that at all. It's just not my thing. It'd be cool if there were a flow pick with the grip texture of the Max Grip. I agree wholeheartedly, and the reason why I wanted to share your comment is because I think a lot of other people out there would agree as well, and maybe collectively, if we make enough noise, maybe Dunlop will hear us, and maybe they'll produce that specific product for us if they don't already have it in the works. I don't, you know, maybe they already do, who knows. But to my knowledge, you know, the Max Grip, you know, the flow standard picks with the Max Grip does not yet exist, and it would be really awesome if they did, because if they made that pick, it would sell like hotcakes. No Sun Model T. Had a feeling it wasn't going to be in this guy's wheelhouse. Who are you talking to? The reason people don't watch your whole videos is you keep putting your foot in your mouth at some point. I, for example, left a thumbs down after your CCR John Fogerty remark and clicked off. You mean my remark about John Fogerty being a great guitar player? Okay. I got a question for you. It seems all the older musicians I know use regular /budget /modified cheap gear to play live and keep their nicer stuff at home. The younger musicians seem to be the exact opposite. They bring the nicest gear they have to play live and won't be seen with budget stuff, except if they don't have a choice in public. What changed exactly? Is it for social media, bragging rights? You know, that's an excellent question, and I'm going to assume that you are in the younger category of musicians when you ask that question, because, you know, while it kind of pains me to admit that I'm now being considered an older musician at 46. As you get older, you know, in my case anyway, as I've gotten older, obviously I've amassed a lot more gear and invested a lot more gear, and you know, a lot of the stuff that I have in this room is very difficult to replace. Some of it might be irreplaceable, such as this guitar right here, for example. You know, this is not the only one in existence, but these never come up for sale. I'm not just gonna be able to hop on Reverb and pick one up on a whim, number one, and you know, that's even if there is one listed. Number two, I'm damn sure never gonna find one for what I paid for it. So as I've gotten older, I've become a lot more conscious about protecting my investments. You know, for the longest time, I have had a rule that I will not, you know, I don't take gear worth any more than $1,500 out to a gig. And for the most part, I still stick to that. You know, the reason why is because, you know, at gigs, you know, a lot of shit happens. You know, people get drunk, it gets knocked around, amps get knocked off of cabinets and shit like that. And worst of all, sometimes things get stolen. And when they get stolen, that's what really sucks. You know, at $1,500, in most cases anyway, for anything of mine in that price range or less, while if something were to happen to it, yeah, it would suck, but it's not irreplaceable in most cases. If I take my Zakk Wylde Vertigo Les Paul out to a gig and something happens to it, there's only 300 of those guitars made. I'm never going to be able to replace that guitar. Even if I can find one, I'm going to pay 3 or 4 times, what that one originally cost. I think another thing to keep in mind is the type of gig that you're playing. If you're a great big national act and you're touring and you're filling up, arenas and stadiums everywhere you go, one, you've got the you have the security detail to be able to make sure that nothing happens to your gear. But number two, you've got endorsements to think about, and quite frankly, chances are you have the means to be able to play really, really high-end gear, and the visual aspect of the gear in a lot of cases is part of the show. While that last point I think does apply to somebody like me, for somebody that's like playing in a cover band and, bars and clubs and stuff like that, for example, 90-something% of my audience isn't going to give a rat's ass what kind, how much my guitar costs or what it even is. 99% of my audience is not going to be able to tell if my amp costs $300 or $3,000. If I'm playing a Blue Voodoo or if I'm playing a high-end Marshall, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's even going to know. So me personally, I've always been a pretty big advocate of of bang for your buck type of gear, not necessarily budget gear, although I do have an appreciation for that as well. But bang for your buck, as much value as I can get for the money. Again, things like my Schecter CR6, things like my Wong's HD30. Those are two pieces of gear that I'm using in the band that I'm in right now. A guitar especially that I really, really love. But it's not. But it doesn't cost a ton of money, and it's not irreplaceable. Triggered. That's a typical comment from someone that has absolutely nothing. You're not even qualified to comment to me about tone. Your playing is questionable at best. You're a funny guy. I've said on this channel many, many times, I have never once claimed to be a great guitar player. I have no delusions about who I am or where my skill level is at. None whatsoever. Ask anybody that knows me, they will all tell you the exact same thing. But as far as your comment, come here. I'm gonna learn you something here. When you take cheap shots at somebody's guitar playing and that wasn't even part of the topic at hand, anybody remotely familiar with modern day psychology will tell you that that is a direct reflection on your own perception of yourself. In other words, you would be really, really insulted if somebody criticized your guitar playing at all. Which means that you're probably very self-conscious about your own playing, which also means that you wish that you were probably a lot better. And that has absolutely nothing to do with me whatsoever. See how that works? Seriously, and this is for guitar players everywhere. Think about your favorite guitar player growing up. Whoever that may have been, whoever it was that inspired you to first pick up and start learning the instrument. Whatever age that may have been. Think about your current favorite guitar player, whoever it is that really inspires you today. And think about how many times any of those guitar players that you look up to has ever talked down about any other musician's guitar playing, ever. My favorites are Steve Vai, James Hetfield, Zakk Wylde, Jerry Cantrell. Among others, but those are probably my top 4. I can't recall hearing any of them ever talk down to any other musicians, any kind, any skill level, any place, anytime, anywhere, about their guitar playing or anything else. You know why? Because number one, it ain't cool. Number two, they don't need to. So, taking all that into consideration, the main question here is, why do you need to? I got RG1503. It would outpower that sissy Marshall all day long. Kind of sounds to me like you're bragging about the fact that you've got a higher electric bill than me. I don't know what you're smoking if you don't think the lower watt MG series aren't among the best practice amps on the market, the operative word being practice. If we're purely talking practice amps, I've played through Fenders, Foxes, Black Stars, Orange, and not proud Line 6s. No better value for your money than the MG combos in my opinion. Obviously, the tone variability isn't comparable to the SL40 or 6505 combo, both of which I've had and loved. But what else could you really recommend under $300? The truth is, there's tons of amps out there, great amps, that you can buy for $300 or less. And I'm not going to get into them here because it's actually inspired me to make another video about it separately, which I'm going to do here in the coming weeks. Maybe sooner if I can figure out how to fit it in. But my point remains, the Marshall MG series ain't one of them. Why they're even still making those amps is beyond me, because I mean that nowadays they're just, that entire series is just absolutely getting annihilated by all the other modeling stuff. The Boss Katanas, for example, that are in that same price range, but do a whole lot more and sound a whole lot better. But regardless, that's I do want to thank you for your comment, because that has actually inspired what I think is a great idea for a video. And that is what a video of great amps under $300. And not just practice amps, but there's pro level amps, tube amps, live amps. I mean, there's lots of stuff out there that you can get for $300 or less. Stay tuned. I hate to say it since I really dislike mini pedals, but I kind of think that mini pedal sounded the best of the bunch. You're referring to the Ibanez Maxon Super Metal Distortion Shootout that I did here just last week, I think it was. Yeah, the general consensus, going by the comments on that video anyway, was that the mini Super Metal was the one that sounded the best. And and I think a lot of that just had to do with the Ibanez seemed to have fixed the headroom problem that most of the previous generations had. But I have to agree, in that shootout anyway, the Mini was, sound-wise, the Mini was probably in my two favorites. The other one being the MS-10 metal charger that was also featured in that video. I don't know what Ibanez did to improve the circuit, but the Mini version has a lot more headroom, and that does a whole lot for that particular pedal. Okay, that's it. That was the last comment. Thank you all so much for taking the time to leave your comments. I really do enjoy doing these viewer comment videos. It's a good opportunity for me to interact with you and kind of share some of the ridiculous shit that I receive on my end. Get a few laughs and things of that nature. And also it's kind of like a non-live live stream for me, which I also really enjoy. So don't forget to leave your comments down in the comment section here of this video or any of the other videos that you might take the time to check out on my channel. And adios!